Hello world! Today is day 24 of my Las Vegas daily vlog, and I just got to the park, the same park that I tried to shoot the sunrise time lapse at, and I have all my GoPro equipment, and I'm going to spend a couple of hours. I still have a couple hours daylight. It's about 5:40 p.m. Have a couple hours of daylight, so I'm going to hang out here for a couple hours and practice using the gimbal. I looked up some tutorials on YouTube, some tips and things for how to hold it, how to walk with it, how the different modes work, but I don't want the first time that I try to do that to be the time that I'm trying to actually capture footage that matters. So I'm at the park, I'm gonna walk around a little, try out some different settings, and see how things work, see how things turn out. I'm sure this is gonna be a learning experience, but I am excited for that, and I'll see you after. I am back, and it was a much less successful first attempt at using a gimbal than I had hoped for. The reason you're looking at my face right now instead of a musical montage of all of these great shots that I got is because I really didn't get any good shots at all. So I'm going to play some B-roll. I'm going to play those shots over me talking right now, because I think it's going to help demonstrate the experience that I had as I talk about it. Number one, well, before I even start this, I'm going to try to keep this as brief as possible because I do recognize my videos have been way too long lately and a lot of it is just me rambling. Sometimes I have a lot of things to say and I don't necessarily realize how long I'm talking. Or I get excited about something and I just keep talking about it even though you're done listening. So I'm gonna try to be brief as I ramble. Number one, the gimbal is not this magical piece of equipment that's going to make my shots nice and smooth and cinematic. I should have recognized this in the same way that having a good computer doesn't make me a good PC gamer, the same way that having a good camera doesn't make you a good photographer, or owning Photoshop doesn't make you good at Photoshop. You know, it's just a tool and you have to learn to use it. I underestimated how difficult it's going to be to learn to use a gimbal. And the hardest part for me so far is just getting the camera to face the direction that I want it to face. When it's in my hands, I can just point it wherever I want. On this gimbal, it felt like I was playing The Witcher 3 and riding around on Roach, the horse. And in that game, you turn and she will slowly turn where you want her to go. And you turn the other way, she slowly turn that way. Which I understand for this camera, it makes sense because it'll make the pans nice and smooth. Going up and down, the tilts make them nice and smooth. I get it. That makes sense to me. I can adjust to that. But sometimes in The Witcher 3, Roach will just go down one path when you want her to go down the other. And that is what this camera was doing. 100%, it's probably user error. But I would walk down a sidewalk, I would be facing myself in the same direction, facing the gimbal in the same direction, but the camera, would face a different direction. So I struggle with that, and that's partially why this footage isn't usable, because I just couldn't get the camera to face where I wanted it to. Let me balance this out. We'll go bad, good, bad, good. One good thing, selfies look awesome. I did just a few walking selfies just to kind of, I don't know, just to try it out, because I was struggling so much with using it in terms of facing forward to show you, the landscape, or when we go on an adventure to show you what's going on around me. Holding out the gimbal as a selfie stick is awesome. And I think this might be one problem that I was creating for myself. When I looked up videos of how to use a gimbal, everyone was saying use two hands so it can be nice and stable. I think that they're talking about professional, large, heavy equipment, whereas this GoPro is so light, and the gimbal is a little heavy, but it's not so heavy that I can't hold it with one hand steady. I honestly think I might have created more problems by trying to use two hands on a device that is meant to be used with one hand. So selfie mode, so smooth. And I think I think that might lead me to trying next time to just use one hand, because by the time I was shooting selfies, I'd given up on trying to shoot with two hands, and I'd given up on trying to shoot at all. I was gonna go set up for a time lapse. Okay, next bad. There is still, I don't want to say camera shake because it's not shaky, but there is the movement when you're walking, unless you walk in a very specific way that just isn't realistic to do as someone who's creating a vlog. If I was filming someone else for a music video, yeah, I'll walk like an idiot in public. You know, I'll do that, or on a set or whatever. But I'm not a videographer. I'm not a film. I'm none of these things. I'm just filming myself. And I need to walk like a normal human being, as normal as someone carrying around a GoPro in public can look. Walking still causes camera shake. The positive side of this, we're gonna go bad, good, bad, good. The positive side of this is that camera shake isn't as weird as it was in the footage I showed you before in the low light settings of the casinos, because that camera shake was trying to be fixed by digital stabilization within the camera. And this is being fixed, by a physical analog motor. So while the shake is there, it doesn't have that almost like VCR line running through the footage. It's not a digital shake. It's just a smooth, human walking shake. So the bad part is walking like a normal human still causes the camera to shake. Something I probably should have realized, but I didn't. But the plus side of that is that it is a lot smoother and it's a lot more natural. Another issue that I had, which is likely user error, but it was just this very weird thing that kept happening. The gimbal kept readjusting itself, and I didn't realize it while I was there, but in the videos there are times when the camera just turns sharply, where it like readjusts itself very sharply, very abruptly, very unnaturally. And that's an issue that's being created that would not be there if I was just carrying the camera by myself, because I'm not going to jerk the camera, 4 degrees to the left. Again, probably user error, but it's like a new problem. While I'm trying to solve problems, I'm gaining new problems that I need to figure out how to fix. One really cool thing though that I did get, what I think is a good shot, is going up and down with the gimbal is probably the easiest thing to do. Like just straight up and down. And that's not something that's easy to do at all when you're holding the camera in your hand, because your wrist doesn't naturally rotate. It doesn't keep the camera level. But the gimbal can create this really cool, I don't know, almost like a drone-like footage, but you can pan, panning, I know is left to right. I don't know the word. You can lift the camera from the ground to the sky, and it's gonna be so smooth. It almost seems like you're jumping, like in zero gravity or something, just like this smooth lift upwards. It's really cool. And even a single glimmer of possibility of a glimmer of seeing what could be possible with this, seeing something new that I'm able to do with the gimbal and create something better than what I'm currently able to create, gets me excited to try again. I don't like golf. I've been golfing like twice, I guess, but there's this thing that somebody said to me when I went golfing with them, and it was that you can have a terrible time like I did. I didn't like it at all, but you hit one good shot and it makes you want to come back. And I felt that when I was trying to use this gimbal. That smooth motion up and down is what's going to keep me coming back to this gimbal and trying again, because I see the potential of, oh, look at this shot that I couldn't get with the camera in my hands that I'm able to get with this piece of equipment, what else can I do with it? And that's really exciting for me. I know I'm talking for way too long. I'm sorry. I'm gonna find a way to make these videos shorter. The last thing I wanna say is also a positive. There might be more negative things, but I've talked too long. I'm gonna move on. The last thing that's a positive has nothing to do with the gimbal, nothing to do with the GoPro, nothing to do with the vlog. It has to do with what was going on at the park. There were so many active people at the park. It makes me so happy to go, and the weather was great. It was getting kind of cool at night, hence the sweatshirt. But people were walking their dogs. People were walking, with their partners, with their friends, with their kids. And even more positive or optimistic than that is that there were hundreds, I would say 200 little kids playing soccer out on those fields. And anyone who has ever said that kids don't play outside anymore, they just play video games or sit on the computer or stare at their phones, false. I saw hundreds of kids out there screaming, having the time of their lives, playing soccer. Some of them there were other kids that were probably siblings of the soccer players that were playing catch with their dad or their grandpa or running around with their dogs. There was one girl that was just wildly chasing birds, but none of them were sitting out there on their phones. I mean, they probably don't have phones, they're kids, but their parents hadn't handed them an iPhone or an iPad to entertain them so that they wouldn't throw a fit. These kids were genuinely having fun, doing something active outdoors. And I think if you take nothing away from this vlog, I don't know. Maybe this is an insignificant thing, but to me, it breeds optimism, because the same way that I said yesterday, how going and experiencing nice, welcoming people and this little, realizing that everyone isn't the internet. I feel I had that experience again, going and seeing all these active people and realizing oh, of course all of these kids aren't just sitting indoors. Of course all these people saying, back in my day, we used to play outside. Yeah, but we also sat in our rooms and played Sega or played PlayStation or sat at the computer and talked on instant messengers. And, I just think, I think the negative things in life and society are vastly exaggerated. And I'm not a pessimistic person in the first place. I don't necessarily fall into these traps where I think the world is falling apart. But the way that people talk about the world makes me question that my own reality sometimes. And going to the park and seeing hundreds of kids out there playing soccer, having fun, chasing birds, chasing each other, playing with their parents, playing with their dogs. Kids aren't just sitting and staring at screens. Maybe you already knew this. I feel there's this perception that is what's happening though. Okay. Gosh, I feel I'm going to have to reshoot this whole thing because I've talked for so long, but if I reshoot it, it's not going to be natural. Here's a time lapse. See you tomorrow.